Yeah, so donations have definitely slowed down, without doubt, certainly since Christmas. That's you know, the first quarter of every year is always tougher than the rest of the year as a general rule, just because cost of Christmas and that kind of thing. And I think that
Mm.
people are finding it harder than ever now. Um, the cost of living crisis. Nobody really seems to talk about it anymore, but it's there. It's massive, and obviously there's lots of political issues at the moment which are ensuring that it continues to be a problem. Um, and when we're looking at the relinquishment of pets to us on financial basis, we're talking 90% of pets that are being handed over to us are coming in because people can't afford to keep them, feed them, so on and so forth.
And is the driver of that sort of part cost of living, or are there any other aspects that are driving it? Is it sort of people buying cats or getting cats that shouldn't really have them?
Um, yeah, and that's always a bit of a political question, really. Before anybody takes on a pet, they should really consider the cost. It's not cheap to own a pet.
Mm.
We've taken on a number of cases recently where, had the first cat been neutered, the other 10 cats wouldn't have existed, and we wouldn't have had to step in and foot the bill for it. And it's really giving consideration. Pets are not a necessity, and therefore, if you're going to take one on, you really need to be sure you can financially afford to look after it. And in this day and age, that's not a cheap do.
No. And of course, it's not just the day-to-day care, is it? It's like you say, you mentioned neutering to stop sort of crazy population growth, because
Yep.
cats aren't the most celibate of animals, are they?
No, not at all. And when you consider that a kitten can be born in January and it can be producing before the end of the year, and it can potentially have two litters within that first year, if all the dates line up right, and every cat has 4 to 5 kittens as a general rule, and so it goes on and on and on. One cat not being neutered equates for thousands of other cats.
And what happens to them? Do they all go back to the home of origin, or
No,
do they end? Where do they end up?
they can end up anywhere. Um, you tend to find a lot that if they're born in somebody's home, end up getting given away to neighbours or friends. You often find in those scenarios very regularly they don't get neutered, and so the pattern continues and continues, or they end up in rescues like ours, or they end up fending for themselves on the street. And don't get me wrong, there are cases where you know somebody will have a litter of kittens, they'll take the responsibility, they'll find them appropriate homes, they'll get the cat neutered at the end of it. But in most cases, that isn't the case at all.
So it's kind of a self-perpetuating situation. If you get these, one unneutered cat, then explodes into a litter of cats, which can then breed. Obviously, they couldn't afford to get the cat neutered in the first place. The generations don't get neutered. The ones that do get rehomed to friends and families, probably, would you say, a distressed or an informed decision, or is it an emotional decision? Are they fully aware of the financial requirements when they make those?
I'm not convinced that they are. And when I consider that I have been in rescue all of my life, and been running Woodlands for 20 years, despite all of the education and all of the finance that in the past has been thrown at neutering schemes, still we are where we are, where people don't consider that getting your cat neutered is important.
So, as a sanctuary, and somebody who's sort of over 20, 30 years experience in animal care, what do you see as the solution?
I see the solution as community neutering. I see the solution as going door knocking, to help find where these cats are, because somebody that will approach one of the larger organisations for a neutering voucher aren't the people that are that they're going to get their cat neutered. It's the ones that haven't got the education to know that they need to get their cats neutered. It's going and it's solving street by street, but that costs a lot of money.
So, in terms of in the sanctuary here, you do quite a lot of proactive work yourselves to try and resolve that problem, as well as dealing with the end result cases of this lack of
Mm-hmm.
neutering. So, what are we doing here to try and stem the tide?
Well, it's all education at the moment because, you know, what needs to happen is a great big barrel of money to go out and deliver community neutering. But until we have a great big barrel of money, we have to take care of the core of what we do. And that's dealing with the end case. And I could double, triple the size of this cattery, and I still wouldn't be dealing with the end problem.
Okay, so to sort of try and help some of those pressures with cost of living, you've launched an initiative at the community hub, haven't you?
Yes, so we're
So
doing a pet food bank to try and help keep pets in their homes. And although we don't cater for dogs at Woodlands, we're also offering dog food as well where we have it. So it's trying to reach out to those communities and trying to help those people that do want to keep their pets. But again, it's not a long term solution. You know, that we feed somebody's pet forever. You know, there needs to be a consideration before you take on that pet that you can afford to feed it. And you know, I think that that service is going to get used more and more and more as I fear that the country is going to face some pretty tough financial times going forward. And you know, I'm no economic expert, but I'm sure we can all sort of see where the problems are starting to lie. And I fear that as people that you know have given consideration to taking on their pet and what that looks like, and you know they're potentially losing their jobs um, with you know an extra round of cuts, and then they find themselves in a position that they can't feed their pet. So either they come to us and we help them, or they come to us and we end up taking their pets.